Did you receive a Schengen visa application refusal because of the lack of the willingness to return to your home country? And now you're asking yourself, what does that even mean? And how can I avoid this accusation? And what are my chances of appealing against this decision? Then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to explain the most common cases of visa refusals in Schengen application cases, and in which cases it actually makes sense to appeal against the refusal. Schengen visas from certain countries are being abused a lot. That is especially the case for countries in Africa or Central Asia. In this, Schengen law is very clear that the clerks of the foreign missions do need to check very, very carefully if there is a chance that the Schengen visa, is being abused. So in some countries, especially Africa and Asia, the clerks are very, very suspicious. And even a minor detail in the application can cause a refusal due to the lack of willingness to return. But when do the clerks from the foreign missions actually think that you will overstay your visa and not leave Germany after the end of your 90 days or your permitted time? The first very easy and obvious case for that is if you have committed an overstay in the past. If your case file already shows, or your Ausländerzentralregister excerpt already shows that you have overstayed your past visas, then you have basically no chance of getting a Schengen visa issued again until you have cleared the registers, the databases from that overstay. The second very obvious case is if you have applied for a D visa in the past and have received a refusal. So it is very common that in some countries, people apply for D visa, for example, for Chancenkarte or family reunion or study or whatever. They get a refusal and then they apply for a Schengen visa. In those cases, it's also quite obvious that you're trying to find a workaround for the D visa refusal by applying for the Schengen visa. So if you have received a D visa refusal in the past, applying for a Schengen visa will not work. Another reason, very common reason for rejection is if you have mentioned somewhere in your application that you want to stay in Germany long term. That is especially true for business Schengen visas. So a lot of foreigners, for example, they come to Germany and they want to found a business here. And then they hand in a business plan or a description of their activities in Germany, or maybe they have even contacted a notary or attorney already to found a GmbH or some other legal entity. In that case, the foreign mission interpret this Schengen visa application, which is meant to be as a 90 days business visa application, they interpret it as a permanent D visa application. And in that case, you applied for the wrong visa type and you will also get it is also very likely that you would receive a rejection of your Schengen visa application. Another very common constellation is that you have family in Germany. So if you have a spouse or kids or some other close relatives in Germany, and then you apply for a Schengen visa, it is also hard to believe that you just want to visit them for 90 days if you do not have strong ties in your home countries. So if you try to apply for a family reunion Schengen visa, that also doesn't work. It only works if you can easily explain that you would return to your home country. So these are only the cases where a refusal of Schengen visa application is very obvious. If you try to find a workaround for your refused e-visa application, or have committed an overstay in the past, the case is quite obvious and it doesn't really make sense to appeal. However, most of the applications are refusals of applications are not that obvious. So in most cases, especially in Africa and Asia, the refusal is because um, you didn't prove strong ties to your home country. Feste Verwurzelung, called in German. In that case, the foreign missions did assess your case and your documents, your motivational letter, and everything you handed in, and maybe even the notes from the visa interview. And they came to the conclusion that it is very unlikely that you would return to your home country. When is the foreign mission of the opinion that you do not have strong ties in your home country? That is especially the case if you do not have family in your home country, if you do not have a job in your home country, if you do not have meaningful financial resources, or any other reason to return to your home country. So if you are a single within Africa without a job and no real reason to return to your home country, you will get a refusal because of the lack of willingness to return. So let's say you received a Schengen visa application refusal and now you want to appeal against this decision. When does an appeal against a refusal make sense? And when does an appeal actually have chance of success? You always have a chance of success if you have documents to prove that you will return to your home country. Especially a good job, real estate, kids and wife in your home country, maybe project, maybe you're self-employed and you have projects in your home country. Maybe you have relatives that need your help in your home country. All these type of things are approved to the court if you appeal in court that you would return to your home country. Another very important factor is actually your financial resources, because illegal immigration to Germany is mostly committed by poor people. Someone who's rich, so for example, someone in India or Pakistan with very good business relationships and maybe some employees and a very good life there, would never legally migrate to Germany. So actually your financial resources play a very big role in the assessment of your willingness to return to your home country. Another very important factor regarding the assessment of your willingness to return is from which country you actually apply. So if you apply from a rich country, then it is very easy to prove that you would return. In that case, maybe even a plane ticket, a flight ticket back to your home country is enough to prove that you would return. On the other hand, from some countries, it is basically impossible to apply. Especially from war countries or very poor countries, applying for a Schengen visa is impossible. If you apply from Syria, Gaza, Afghanistan, some of those conflict countries, poor countries, then it is very hard to explain that you would return to your home country. If you are a single woman from Afghanistan or Iran or whatever, and you apply for Schengen visa, it is very hard to explain that you would return after the 90 days. So as an immigration attorney, as a visa attorney, you're trying to find cases where you think that an appeal against the Schengen refusal has a chance of success. Which are those cases? The first thing I look for is usually financial resources. If the client is poor and the application is in a poor country or a relatively poor country, then the chances of success are very, very low. The only argument that can basically heal the lack of financial resources is if you already had a visa, a Schengen visa in the past or a D visa in the past and didn't commit an overstay. So even an application from Syria, Afghanistan, or Gaza, or whatever, can be successful without financial resources if you already received Schengen visa in the past and didn't commit. However, if you do not have received visas in the past, then financial resources is usually the best argument. If you have a good life in your home country, have job, maybe self-employment, business, family, real estate, big social life, many friends, whatever, then it is quite easy to argue that you would return to your home country, and then an appeal actually makes sense. What did we learn from this video? What is the takeaway from this video? If you want to appeal against a Schengen visa refusal, it depends mostly on your financial resources. If you apply from a rich country or a moderate rich country and you have some financial resources on your own, maybe at least 10, 15,000 euros or whatever or more, then it makes sense to appear. Then you can definitely win the court trial. And if you're in that situation, you need supportive arguments like family, job, whatever, all the things I've mentioned in this video. On the other hand, it doesn't make sense to appeal against a Schengen visa refusal if you have committed overstays in the past, if you applied for a D visa in the past and that got refused, or if you are in a poor country and you cannot prove financial resources or job or family in your home country.